Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Today we are going to have orientation class for history. Now, history is a very fascinating subject. What does history mean? In a very simple language, if we see, history is all about the past. Now, Indian history has been divided into several sections. There was ancient history, medieval history, then came the modern history, and then the postmodern, which is usually considered as history after India got independence in 1947. But if you talk about history, it goes beyond the ancient as well. In ancient India, even the time when there was no language is also considered as the part of history. How the historians used to dig up things from the ground to know what exactly was our past, what were the habits, what were the ethics, how was the polity, how was the economy, and everything can be determined only by history. A human being can never be complete until he has the knowledge of history. All the great leaders in the world has great knowledge of history. If we see our first Prime Minister, the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, has written 3 books which has considerable amount of historical knowledge into it. It's considered one of the best selling books around the world. So history is all about past. Now this is a very simple way of saying it, but we just trying if we look into our own personalities, what do we learn from our past? What do we learn? We learn art and culture, how our society was. Now, why do we learn the past art and culture? We learn the past art and culture so that we can understand our present, so that we can understand which habits, which traditions, which customs, which ethics and which morals which we used to follow as human beings, we has developed as human beings in the ancient era, is continuing today. And the greatness of Indian society is that many elements of our culture continues from a very, very long time in the past till today. Now that's the greatness. If we look into our religions, there are many religions in India. If we look into our festivals and the way we dress and the things we eat, everything is constantly evolving, and the knowledge of everything is very important, not only for an administrator in order to understand and administer things, but also for human beings to become more knowledgeable about our society, to respect people, to respect their habits, to respect their religion, to respect their customs, to respect their administration and their way of life. So art and culture contributes as one of the most important part of the study of history. Now moving on, lives of the common people. This is very important. Lives of the common people. We learn about common people. See, history has been written from above and history has been written from down. What is the difference between the history from above and history from down? The history from down is the history of common people. The history from above were the history of dynasties, kings, queens, big dynasties. The person should certainly have knowledge about dynasties, kings and queens, and then lineage and what happened and who killed whom and who ruled whom. But it's very important to understand the lives of common people, and this can only be understood when we understand the history from below. History from below, and then the other part is history from above. We learn about the lives of great personalities like Gautam Buddha. What did Gautam Buddha do? One person has so much influence on Indian history. Think about it. Mahavir, so much. If we look at Buddhism, it not only religion, but it was a way of life for many people. Not only way of life, but culture and art and architecture, everything was influenced by this one person, Gautam Buddha. Little by little, history has been made in India, and the lives of common people was influenced. In a similar fashion, there were many great personalities in India and throughout the world, but we also see people like Mahatma Gandhi in modern India. Who has a totally different outlook. Who in that era, when there was so much extremism throughout the world, where world wars were fought, who would talk about peace? Who would talk about things like truth and non-violence? So, great personalities. You see how important he was to Indian history, and not only he, we should not limit. There are many personalities. Bhagat Singh, B.R. Ambedkar. These are well-known personalities in Indian history. Swami Vivekananda, who has great influence on Indian religion and social life. Now, habits and behaviors of people. This is something which makes the customs, which makes the traditions, ethics and morals of the society. We also see here the economy. Think about it, Indian economy, which has started from barter system, or even there was no barter system at one point in time, but emerging from barter system to the modern complex economy, where we have concepts of value added and so many things. GST is there and whatnot. Economy, we have more complex economy. Many of the things have been adopted from West because of the influence of Britishers and their rule over India for about 200 years. But many of the things after independence is what is original to India. We have evolved it in our economy. So in order to understand the economy of today, it is very important to understand the economy of past and its evolution, and can only be done when we study history. So history in a way is a complex package of all the subjects which you are going to see: philosophy, economy, administration, polity, everything, the courts, the police system, the military system, everything we are going to study under history. Administration, was it centralized or was it decentralized? If we see in Indian history, we find the example of ancient India, where the Gupta Empire was a decentralized empire, whereas on the other hand, the empire of Chandragupta Maurya was centralized empire. In the similar fashion, in the South India, we see local village polity, local administration in the villages, never seen before. We see it in Indian history. Now the topic comes, why we should understand the history for UPSC. One part is to develop our personality. Yeah, that's a good thing. A learned man must always know about history. But from the perspective of UPSC, why it is important? Let's get down to these things. Like prelims, if you see, which consists of how many? 200 marks, has quite a good number of questions coming from history, from 15 to 20, plus minus 2-3. If you see, 15 to 20 questions are covered from history. Think about it, the cutoff last year and from last 2-3 years was 95, 98. If we study history in a very nice manner, if we take interest in studying history, a considerable amount of questions can be marked correctly. And this 95 to 98 number, or if it gets to 105 or 110, whatever, it's easily achievable with these 15 questions of history, with these 20 questions of history. It's a great subject to study on the similar in a similar line. It's great subject for UPSC. It gives you great edge as far as the prelims exams go. But it's not confined to the prelims exam. If you see mains GS paper 1, almost 3 to 4 questions. Now it has decreased. Over the period of time, the questions from society has increased, but still, you never know. UPSC may come up with 5 questions tomorrow in GS paper 1. It's unpredictable, UPSC. So it's very important. If even if 3 questions are asked, think about it. 45 marks. That's huge. If the questions are 10 markers, it's still 30 marks. 1 marks can decide your rank. 1 marks can decide whether you are going to become an IAS officer or an IPS officer, and 1 mark can decide whether you can have your home cadre or you can have other cadres. Just 1 marks. Think about it. History, 45 marks, 30 marks, 45 to 30 marks. If you write well, if you have knowledge of it, it's going to be greatly beneficial for you in mains exam, GS mains. Now comes essay. It's always good to have historical point of view in your essay. Any topic, it's a philosophical topic, it's a normal topic from some reports, headings, or anything, whatever comes in the essay paper. Giving a historical point of view gives a relevance to your material. Whatever you're writing, the person who is reading it thinks that he has a one extra point of view, which is historical point of view, and it's very important. If you miss it, definitely the person who is checking your copy is going to think about it. Where is the historical point of view? It's very important. Believe me, it puts a very good impression on person who is evaluating your copy. Ethics. The paper of ethics, it's a very important 250 marks paper in mains, where you can quote examples from history, historical example with the life of great people like Mahatma Gandhi, Buddha, Vivekananda. We have discussed, and not only Indian personalities. There were many foreign personalities from Europe, personalities from America, personalities from Japan and China, Tao, like so many of them. Ethics, it's history is full of examples which can be used in ethics paper, and they are such a big and a great example which can be used. And the added point is, the person who is reading it, most of the time he knows about it, because these stories have been heard from childhood. The historical stories about great personalities, about great events, Mahabharata and whatnot, everything, everybody hears these stories, and quoting examples from it, quoting examples from history, quoting examples of Mahatma Gandhi, quoting examples of B.R. Ambedkar, quoting examples of Bhagat Singh, quoting examples of people who wanted to take over, like the great people like Subhash Chandra Bose. You always have your package when you are writing ethics paper. In order to get good marks, the history subject is very important. Now we are talking about why history is important as far as the UPSC exams go. And in interview, by God's grace, you reach interview. What do you really think what they are trying to understand there? It's a simple agenda. Those 4 or 5 people, 6 people are sitting just to see whether you are eligible to be a civil servant or not. That's it. They are not checking your knowledge. They are not there to check what kind of clothes you are wearing. Nothing. Only one agenda: whether you are eligible to become a civil servant in their eyes or not. And how they are going to gauge that thing? When you talk, how broad is your understanding? How open is your mind? And can only be done, I'm not saying only, but what I'm saying, it can greatly be improved when you read history, because understanding of the present society, why tribals follow what they follow, why tribals eat what they eat, openness of mind, ability to take people into the mainstream, ability to understand the differences between cultures, That's one of the very major requirement to become a civil servant, and that's what is seen in your interview. And it's very important when you read history. Think about it. If you have never read history about tribals, and if some tribal comes in front of you dressed like a tribal, you will say, my god, who is he? So important thing, there are many like them. There are many who have been exploited, not only by Britishers, but even after the independence of India. And if you are going to become an administrator, you must know their culture, and it can only be understood when you study history. So it's not about getting marks, it's about understanding. It's about taking interest in our society, taking interest in our history. Then the history subject is going to give you something which you can never imagine. Now, the most important part as far as the exams go is the modern history, because most of the questions coming in prelims, in mains exams are from modern history. So we are going to start our subject from modern history. We will take on ancient, medieval afterwards from modern history. So I'm just going to give you a sort of an introduction about what we are going to start from and where we are going to end, just broad, bigger headings. We will be beginning from the coming of the European companies. When the European companies started coming to India for trade, European companies like Portuguese, Dutch, Danes, France, and British. All these companies came to India. They have established their trading ports, they have established their principal settlements in India, and how they were fighting among themselves for dominance of trade in the Arabian Ocean, in India, also on the mainland, and how Britishers were able to win over all of them through treaties, through fights, through battles, through wars, Anglo-French War, things like this. So this is going to be our first topic, which we are going to study. And not the first topic which we are going to study, I would say this is one of the topic which we are going to study, and it is going to continue till 1757, when the Battle of Plassey was fought and English won in that. Then after that, we are going to study the consolidation of the British Empire in India. British now have won over all the other European countries in India. In India, they were the biggest traders as far as the Europeans goes. Now they were trying to consolidate their empire so that they can save their trade. At one point, after saving their trade, they started becoming the political power in India. How did they become the political power in India? So from 1757 till 1857, where we are going to see the doctrine of lapse policy and the different methods used by Britishers to take over the Indian states, Jhansi, Satara, and so many of them, and what were the reasons for the revolt of 1857? Why did the 1857 revolt happen? Why were people so much angry with the Britishers? What did they do? What did they do to the common people, the peasants, to the zamindars, to the tribals, to the princely states? What did they do? We are going to study it. After that, India, through the Act of Government of India Act 1858, was directly taken over by the British Crown. Earlier, company was ruling here, but then what started? The direct rule of the Crown. So India, in a way, became the part of the world economy and started getting exploited more and more. We are going to see it. The economics of India, how the international trade and how it impacted India is going to come in picture here. Along with this, from the 80s, when the nationalism, the modern nationalism, started emerging in India, in different areas, in different provinces, most importantly in Bengal, Madras, Bombay, Punjab, and in 1905, when the Bengal, which was the nerve center of the nationalism of India was divided by Lord Curzon into two parts on religious and the cultural basis. We are going to see this. Why did this happen? How it impacted the Indian people? Why? During this time, the goal, the aim of Swaraj, the demand of Swaraj was raised. What is Swaraj? Why was it raised for the first time? Why not before? What happened? Why people started thinking about Swaraj? We are going to see it. Then, after that will come the Gandhian age. Mahatma Gandhi and his famous three movements, the non-cooperation movement, the civil disobedience movement, and the Quit India movement, and its impact on the Indian society. The Gandhian ideology and its impact on the people, on the lives of people. This is a very important topic because in today's India also we talk so much about Mahatma Gandhi. In our foreign policy, Gandhian principles are one of the major elements and pillars. Wherever our Prime Minister goes, he talks about cultural diplomacy. From where is it coming? From the Gandhian point of view. So this era, I would say, was one of the golden era as far as the philosophical part of Indians go. A totally new age where new things were experimented on Indian soil as far as the national movement goes. There was violence, yes, of course, we cannot deny it, but at a very large level, the majority level, people were just following what Mahatma Gandhi used to say, and his methods were peaceful. His methods were dependent on truth and non-violence, which it's a great achievement throughout the world. Don't forget. Socialist age, the late 30s and socialist age and the Karachi session, and the Swaraj party, 1940s, everything, how Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose started getting influenced by the socialist ideology. What impact did the trip of Jawaharlal Nehru to erstwhile USSR had on his ideology? What the world has learned from Russia, what the world, India has learned from Russia and its 5-year plans and economic policy, everything comes during this age. How still we are trying to follow the socialist ideology, how it became so important in the postmodern era, post-independence era in India. And last was the partition and the independence. Independence took place in 1947, but before that, India was divided into two parts, Pakistan and India, and great large number of people died in the riots. So this is how we are going to cover our history, the modern Indian history, which is not only important for UPSC but also for the development of a human being. And remember, history is all about the past, but it tells you, it teaches you a great deal about present, a great deal you learn about why we behave in a particular way, and why and how our societies, our economies and polities work in the way they are working now. So thank you very much for attending this session. I hope you liked it. I hope you all join Adda 24/7, and we will get a